Hello and welcome to this domain session as part of the buildingSMART International Summit Singapore 2025. Thank you for joining us today. My name is John Proctor and I will be your moderator. Details of today's session are on the screen. This is a panel session hosted by Calvin Cam, and he will be introducing the panel both in the room and online. And we will be talking about global openBIM mandates. The session is scheduled to last for 90 minutes, including time for questions at the end and also during the session itself. The session is being recorded and will be made available in the replay section of the event as soon as possible. Before I hand over to Calvin, I'd like to remind you this is a hybrid event. If you're online, your microphones will remain muted for the duration of the session. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please use the comments box in the control panel. And I will prompt you to do so. For the attendees here in the room, please keep background noise to a minimum. And if you wish to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and we have some roving microphones. I'd also like to bring to your attention the information on the screen now, that buildingSMART is committed to ensuring that participation in the development of standards is unrestricted and the process for their adoption is transparent. And standards that are developed do not favour any particular provider, but are open, non-binding, and accessible to all. Please take note of our code of conduct. With that, I'd like to pass over to Calvin, who will introduce the session and the panel. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you so much, John, and all the buildingSMART International and buildingSMART Singapore team. I think all your hard work, all the preparation really help many of us to feel like home here. So thank you so much, and great to have the audience here. So I guess many of us were at the main stage yesterday, just a show of hands. And probably have heard or related or on the stage, as many of you did, to talk about global openBIM mandates. And certainly, I think we heard a lot and learned a lot from the Singapore story. Lovely to learn about what the CoreNet has been for the last 20 years and how it has evolved and where it's going. And in terms of not only a mandate, which may be one word, but really about the capability, the business reasons, the process, the impacts and the significance of not doing it versus doing it. So I think these are why we are here today, to hoping that we can learn as much from one another. We have three distinguished kind of like experts and representatives joining us. So why don't we start by learning a little bit more about Anina, Hamid, and Will. So Anina, would you mind to please introduce yourself?
Thank you. So I'm Anina Lehikoinen. I'm the CEO for buildingSMART Finland, and I'm quite rare in this because I actually work full-time for buildingSMART chapter, and I have a background in civil engineering and architecture, and before coming to buildingSMART Finland I worked on major infrastructure projects in Finland and in Australia.
Great. And as we also know and also see other Finns in the room, that Finland has always been at the forefront of openBIM and really doing a lot of those. So we'd love to learn some of your perspective from Scandinavia. And then we're just going alphabetical in case you wonder. And then Hamid joining us from UAE, from Dubai Municipality. Hamid, please introduce.
Hi everyone, my name is Hamid. I'm from Dubai Municipality as a project management engineer. And I work with the buildingSMART chapter UAE also. And my background is in architecture engineering. And I finished my master's in science of architecture engineering.
Great. And then joining us from across the Pacific Ocean, it's Will Holmes, and maybe even across the continent, joining us from Kentucky.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Will. I'm from the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and my background is started in GIS, grew into big data, and also have worked very actively with the American Association of Transportation Officials, which that is the collective DOTs working together to solve problems, particularly on software development. There's a link to my LinkedIn in case you need to contact me.
Okay. I think you may have another slide or two.
Yeah. So just hitting on the theme, one of the things that has come out a lot is that we have to work together. This is actually the state seal for Kentucky. It's a great concept that if we work together, we'll be successful together. Very often we don't, unfortunately, but I hope that this is inspiration to all of us that we can continue. And
Thank you.
yours.
And at this point, why don't we also get a sense of who are in the room, not only in the physical rooms. As John mentioned, we also have quite a number of you joining us remotely. So if you all can use a QR code or go to the website menti.com, enter the code easier, maybe just click the QR code and just let us know which country, which economy you are representing joining us from today. And then, John, if we don't mind, let me also introduce you. I have two teammates joining us from California. They are Janice Du and also Tony Winella. So Janice, Tony, how are you doing in California? And what are we seeing in terms of our representation in the room and in the virtual space? And John, we may want to briefly show that from Janice if convenient.
Yeah, sure. Tony, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, well, greetings from Berkeley, California. Sorry I can't be there in person. We are just beginning to get the input from Menti, and Janice, who's also here in California. Do you have the results in hand yet?
Yeah, are you seeing it live?
No.
I'll bring your slides.
We're working on that. We're working on that.
Okay.
Yes. So please, there you go. So Singapore, Finland, Hong Kong, China, Benelux, Japan. I'm taking an eye exam. As you has a better eyesight than me, but good to see the diversity. Denmark, and you may represent building sector, construction tech, Brazil, Malaysia, Canada, Spain. Great. And I think I really like what Will mentioned. United, if we team up, we all can stand, we all can go together. And if we are divided, we cannot go too far. All right. Why don't we go back to the slide deck?
Yeah.
We will try to keep a lot of the remark pretty brief so that we can hear not only from the four of us, but importantly from each of you. There will also be different Mentimeter as we go on. So thank you and welcome. Can we back to the PowerPoint mode? Thank you.
I'm going to.
So indeed, I think as we learned, when I first joined Building Smart more than 20 some years ago, I think there were just a handful of chapters, and great to just to see the diversity and the global representation. So maybe also a little bit of introduction of myself. I'm Calvin Can, and I actually, as I just mentioned, I started with the Building Smarter at that time IAI community back in 2001. By spending my time in Finland, working with our Finnish friends. We were using IFC 1.5 at that time. And then trying to be this cross-pollinator of a global, is the clicker working, John? I may need this to be back on the presentation mode for the clicker to work.
Yeah, is it not working?
You may need to, we may need to bring it up. Yeah, there you go. Sorry. Oh, there you go. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm losing it. Oh, you may need to release that button and then it may work again. There you go. And then over the years, I think my team and I never shy of working with whatever may be the best standard of the time. It may be IFC 1.5, it may be the first set of model view definition in the early year 2000, it may be BCF, and working with different asset owners, be they be working on public assets, like in the US, where we were having a mandate of openBIM back in 2003, that by 2006, all public projects had to be submitted in openBIM format. Or in Singapore, with TIFAD here, actually in this building and many other locations, we're actually looking at a lot of those. in the recent years, my team and I have also been working on how to work with IDS. I think we started some of the IDS when it was version 0.x, and see how to bring it up to a city scale. And working globally with lots of global partners, we were also looking at model server more than 20 years ago, and openBIM types of model server. So that's a little bit of introduction of myself. I'm also an adjunct professor at Stanford University, being an ambassador, champion of buildingSMART, and also with my firm, along with Tony Janis, with strategic building innovation. So in this segment, I would like to reflect on what we have seen yesterday, that for many buildingSMART meetings, we may have seen maps like this, that globally, there are lots of IFC, call that mandates, call that policies, call that legislation in some cases around. And that last September in Morocco, there was the publication of the first global IFC mandates. And you notice that some of the terms, we're also trying to refine it along the way with Aidan and the BSI team. And but then don't let perfection be the enemy of good. It was a good publication at that time with all these countries' economies being represented. And what happened just yesterday or last week? If the clicker may not be working.
No.
The clicker is not working for
All
now.
the time. Let's have a
Yeah.
look. Should be, but
Okay.
no, it's not, is it?
And then what you see is that yesterday on the main stage, it was mentioned that the 2025 edition was published. And for example, we are nice and happy to learn from the Dubai example. And similarly, you may notice the ongoing changes. And so what we are here today is also learn about what is the value of some of this publication. What can we do together to improve it? For example, should we call that mandates or not mandates? Should we call that IFC or should we call that openBIM? I think as we talk about with the openBIM community, all these are something that we can team up together and make sure that that is valuable for all of us. So if we take a closer look at the map that has been presented many times by the BSI community, there are actually different types. For example, it's certainly beyond IFC. What we have seen, and we have representatives here from Spain, from Poland, from China, is that it's more than IFC. It may be about BIM collaboration format, it may be about BSDD, it may be about IDS. So should it be called openBIM mandates rather than IFC mandates? And if we also take a closer look, there are two types of quotes mandates. One will be asset owners like ASHTO, like maybe many of your agencies in Finland, like the Finnish Transportation or Finland Senaatti Properties, that you own all these kind of assets and you want to leverage openBIM, including IFC, during the procurement process. And then if you look at all the map and try to divide them, there are different types, like what we have learned yesterday in this room about that for submissions and approval, for us to get a permit approval, for us to get the public agency to make sure that this is code compliant, there are submission and approval. And again, we're also happy to have Dubai municipality also sharing us what we have learned from Singapore, how that may be similar difference from what you're doing in the UAE. And of course, yesterday we're also happy to hear that Japan is also embarking on this journey. So kind of like I hope that we don't only limit it to this 90 minutes. What we can do between now and Germany and beyond, and there was also a recent chapter leadership call in which I think our friend from Spain, from Canada, among other locations, where I research among others here, who talk about this. So how can we team up together and make this publication, should it be a PDF or should it be a website, be valuable for all? For example, should we expand to cover more chapters, more economies? Should we group and separate, for example, like I mentioned, based on procurement versus based on approval? Understanding from each of the story, it's good, but can there be some comparison? Can there be some recipe? Can there be some summary takeaway? For example, what are the metrics? Why are we doing that? Sure, it may take time and investment, but are we seeing a better return on investment over time, right? And as we said, should we be called openBIM? It's mandates the right word, or does it have a negative connotation? Should we call that, for example, policies, right? But all in all these cases, it involves government, public entities, making that to be part of a standard operating procedure, so that not only the leading team, but also any teams working in those economies will benefit and will go through the openBIM process. I think that's what we're all trying to do, whether whatever label we put it. So in our segments, learning from our panelists, we'll break it down into three. Basically, the why, the what, and the so what. When it comes to why, I still remember vividly that almost 25 years ago, when I spent some time in Finland working on the Alfa Aalto University, even though it was IFC 1.x, even though the technology don't have the cloud, don't have everything we have today, but it's still important to focus on the value proposition, that for this 20-person architectural firm, they were able to see 50% reduction of time for documentation. And so what is our corresponding and collective metrics, expected value versus actual realized impacts? And I think that's also a question that we should be asking ourselves. Sure, we may not be there, but what is the expectation? And how are we learning from those? And then over the years, over the last 20 years, we brought a lot of what we have learned and collaborated with Finland. For example, across the Atlantic Ocean with the US federal government agencies, even back in 2003, 2004, using openBIM, able to report, for example, 800% return on investment. Sure, that may be one-off, but then what may be other benefits of BIM versus openBIM? With openBIM, are we expecting 6 times faster, 270 times faster in terms of what kind of routine, what kind of project? And now that we have AI, we have a lot more automation. So why? What are the expectations? In terms of what, again, mandates can give us a certain imagination, but we may start with pilots, and eventually it's about business as usual. So over the last 10, 12 years, I have the privilege to contribute at the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, made up by more than 21 economies and countries. And a slide I like to use is that with openBIM, is it like double handling? Is it like what we learned from Singapore in terms of what we're trying to avoid? Is it just adding more workload? Is it just adding more workflow? Or is it really innovative? Is it really able to achieve a good outcome? And then what we proposed to APAC was that, sure, policy, or call that mandate, it's one important part, but we need to start by understanding the status quo. What is working, what is not working? We need to start with pilot. So it's perfectly fine maybe to understand pilots. We learned from Singapore, about 50, 60 projects are being piloted right now. And then later on, we need to also understand the interrelationship with the industry to allow true innovation to happen. So that's a little bit of the journey. So the second Mentimeter question, if y'all can click on the QR code or be ready on the same QR code, it's that what may be your involvement with openBIM, I'll call that openBIM, mandates in your organization, economy, department, company. And we'll jot them down. And then towards the end, Janice and Tony will share all these results together. And then in terms of why, and let's learn more from our panel audience, what our team has been working closely with buildingSMART International is that what are the metrics? For example, I still remember, Tamo, that you shared the example about saving 6 million on a 140 million euro project. To us, that's an amazing example in terms of cost and value. And with many global openBIM award-winning cases, we have seen these kind of benefits, that whether we talk about safety or security, whether we talk about decision-making, we talk about time and program, asset and sustainability, that openBIM is proving its value. So with that, how exactly is a respective mandate or is a respective policy or pilots serving in your respective economies, and why? Why are you doing that? So why don't we go around the room and learn from Anina, and our fellow speakers.
Right, thank you. So I think there's a lot of benefits, but we're talking about different levels, and I think the highest level in terms of benefits would be sustainability, keeping this planet livable. Another one that actually has been spoken about in the industry for the past 30 years is increasing productivity. But the challenge is that we have not really increased productivity in the last 30 years. So it's pretty much a flat line in terms of productivity in the AECO industry. But firstly, to achieve sustainability, to achieve productivity, we need digitalization in the industry, and that has not happened yet. And digitalization is a change of culture. It's a change of business models. It's really profound change. And even though in speeches, everybody wants sustainability, everybody wants to increase productivity, making the changes are the most difficult ones. Changing processes, digitalizing workflow, having new business models. This is the hard question on it. And to get forward in achieving the benefits on a high level, also saving time, saving cost will come along, but we need the digitalization to happen first. And I think we need to have an open discussion on that. Where are we now as an industry, and where should we be going as an industry, and what does that on a profound level mean to us? How should we bring forward this change?
Well, why don't we learn from the Ashton experience?
Sure. Oops. Get this going. So I'm sure you've probably seen this before, but part of the value proposition is that by getting the design right, you're then feeding not only the fabrication of the things that go into what we build. Again, I'm talking more from the road and bridges, transportation focus, through construction, but then also into asset management. So this is, a BSI slide, but I borrowed this from ESRI, which is a GIS firm, again, showing part of my background, but BIM is not isolated. It's part of a larger ecosystem. And that's something we always have to keep in mind, is the information needs to flow wherever the decision maker is. And so we have to look at this larger interconnected set of circles or loops to try to feed all of that information forward throughout the process. Also, from a DOT perspective or from a transportation perspective, we've got a whole bunch of different pieces beyond design, construction, and operations that need to be dependent on that data. And so, this is something that we've been wrestling with for the last 20 years. And BIM is an aspect of that. Again, when we're talking about the value of it, we've talked about efficiency, we've talked about those pieces, but there's something also that is, to me, kind of personal, and that's the safety side of it. Every day of construction that we have out on the roads, you create an opportunity for a worker to be killed, or for a driver, unfortunately, inattention, whatever happens in that construction zone, and then you have secondary crashes and fatalities. And so one of the things that Kentucky and literally the United States federal highways is very focused on is every day counts. We need to be driving safety as much as possible, not only through the construction side or the quote worker side, but for the traveling public, because tragedies happen every day and we need to avoid that. So Hamid.
Thank you. One of the values and benefits are enhancing collaboration and integration. And also we have the common long-term accessibility of the data. So the accessibility of the long term of the data is very important for us as a regularity body in Dubai municipality. We need to access the data of the city. So also it's increasing efficiency and cost, even the approval times. As they mentioned also. Thank you.
All right, thank you, thank you. So we certainly budget a lot more time to be interactive. We want to learn from many of you as we do. I want to share from the panelists. So on Mentimeter, at the same time, you can also share your view about what do you see as some longer term impacts and how it is improving the efficiency, or is it actually affecting our efficiency? So let's jot them down. But at the same time, anybody in the audience would like to share more about why global BIM, open BIM mandates. For example, I noticed that Thai Fat, one of our BSI fellows in the room, has been, I think yesterday has been talking about CoreNet, has been around for more than 20 years. I see one here too, that and representing Singapore. So can you share with us how the why some of the change? And of course, we heard some of those from your colleagues and your successors yesterday. Anything that you want to reflect on it? Yeah, let's learn from the Singapore side.
Okay. Stand there. Yeah. Okay. Morning. Thanks, Kevin. Maybe I just share a little bit from Singapore perspective of our digital transformation journey. We actually have three milestones which I'm gonna share with you. The first milestone is how we transform from paper-based to electronic-based. That was the first milestone, and that happens in about 2001. The second milestone was where we actually mandate BIM submission, and that was around 2013. And yesterday, if you are at the seminar, the third mandate will be October this year. We will mandate coordinated BIM submission. So these are the three milestones of transformation. So I'll just share with you some of my perspective of what we went through all these three milestones, because I think it's quite important for countries that want to do similar kind of transformation. So for each of these milestones, I think there are a few common things that we do. The first thing is that you better make sure that the industry is more or less ready before you make the announcement on the mandatory date. So for us, I think we actually give the industry 3 years heads up of what we want to do. And then along the 3 years, we actually need to build up what we call the industry capability. You need to ramp up efforts to make sure that they're ready when the mandatory dates kicks in. So this is the thing that we do in terms of ramping up the industry. The second thing that we do is that for all these three milestones is that you give incentive for early adopters. So for people that choose to come even before the mandatory date, we give them some incentive in terms of funding support or training or funding support to acquire the kind of solutions that's needed for the change. So that is the other thing that we do. Then the third thing that we do, I think Kevin also mentioned, it's important to do pilot testing as much as possible. So minimally, we actually do 1 year pilot test before each of these mandatory dates kicks in. So those are the kind of things that we do to prepare ourselves for the change. And then the other thing that is important that we also need to share is the benefits that we gain from all those transformation. For example, in the case of the first milestone, when we changed from the paper-based to electronic submission, after a few years of implementation, we actually did some kind of ISO study, which shows that because of that change from paper-based to electronic submission, over 10 years period for the industry, I think we save about US 320 million. You can actually Google for this study in the internet. Okay, so those are the things that is important to share with the industry, and why we managed to have this kind of benefits. I think from my perspective is that because we impose certain standards when we change from paper-based to electronic submission. There's no IFC then, but we have what we call CAD layering, 2D CAD layering. So we impose on the CAD layering standards for our industry, and everybody has to conform to the CAD layering standard. And because they have to conform to standard, I think in a way, after a while, the industry, when they exchange drawings with one another, and because they conform to certain standards, I think there's no time wasting to interpret the drawings. So for each of these milestones, even from the paper-based to electronic, and then to BIM, of course, at that point in time, we didn't specify any standard. We just specified native format. But now, with the October mandate, we actually specify the use of IFC. So having a standard is also important for us to try to drive the change for the industry. In my view, if you don't have standard, I'll say good luck to you to drive any change. Yeah. Right. Thanks. Yeah.
So good to hear that we're all very lucky here because we're all working with the openBIM standards. And indeed, I think I remember first hosting TIFAD and the BCA team almost 20 years ago, and then also being serving as one of your international experts here more than 15 years ago now. And I still remember some amazing story. For example, a 20-person architectural firm was able to report, Mr. Kim Lo Fong, I still remember, that was able to report a 30% improvement of their firm productivity, even using technologies 10 years ago, right? And similarly, I think working with some of your CORENET ex-colleagues today, they were saying that, sure, yesterday we heard that the mandates may be something like 30,000 or thousands of meters square to be a minimum requirement, that there are existing engineers and designers and ready to do some of those voluntary openBIM on their own because they saw the efficiency and would like, or like in the Finland example, they would even model on the other disciplines' behalf. And what was also very exciting to hear was that there would even be a one-person entrepreneur here in Singapore developing something around IDS, around model validation, and actually started to see there may be business opportunity for them to be profitable with that. So these are just all some amazing stories, and would love to capture some of those sound bites, not only here in the room, but to actually document that in the next version of the publication. So another question we have, a new question on Mentimeter, if you have your phone handy, is that what do we want to learn from one another? I think some of you driving the chapter leadership call a few weeks ago, we had a very lively discussion. Would love to also hear from those joining us remotely or in person, what may be your take? I do see what sounded like a new intern in the room, Jan. I think, do you mind to share not about the interim CEO only perspective, but what I recall before your intern date is that you worked with Estonia and really a lot. I still remember that at that time, what was really memorable is that you were able to even improve the efficiency during the COVID years, right? So do you mind to share some of those?
Yeah, thank you, Calvin. So yeah, I used to work for the Estonian government, implementing BIM-based permitting, and we have, since 2016, we already had a fully digital permitting system, like the first CORENET system, I guess. And Yeah, well, the BIM-based system is now live online, so you can go to the website in Estonia for the building registry. You can log in and you can upload a BIM model, and you can run automated checks to see whether it conforms to certain regulatory requirements. There's not a lot of checks. It's about 47 at the moment, but the idea is that there's going to be more and more as we progress. So it has to be, yeah, as I heard in the Singapore example, you need to pilot, you need to test first. So the idea is to do it gradually, not with a big bang. It's not mandatory, so it's not mandated. That's not where we're at yet in Estonia, I think. But to your point about the digital permit processing, when COVID hit, we didn't also yet have the BIM-based system, but we did have the traditional kind of digital system, which is similar to Coronet X in the sense that it pulls together all the different stakeholders. So the building registry system is used as the central system to coordinate communication between not just the applicant and municipality, but also the fire department, also the health department, environmental departments, whoever needs to be involved, whether it's near a body of water, whether it's near some sensitive military objects. So you need a lot of people involved and a lot of communication. So it became kind of the hub for communication. And when everything was shut down with COVID, well, obviously you couldn't walk to the municipality to do this work anymore or to ask somebody. So it was all online. And people, if they were stuck home behind their computers, they looked at what they could do, and they noticed that they could clear out, their backlog regarding building permits. So we saw an increase, a jump in activity regarding permitting, and we saw an increase in efficiency of how quickly they were processed. So that shows, again, it's a good example of the power of a digital system. It's not directly translatable yet, I would say, to openBIM, but openBIM has its own values. And I think if we talk about from the government perspective, why openBIM is so important is because it's an international open standard. It is not linked to any specific vendor. It is not linked to any specific software or process. It is vendor neutral, and it gives you the interoperability. And another point which I often hear governments also making is that, well, we need to have everything open source. Everything needs to be open source this, open source that. Why? Because, I mean, seriously, why? I've been in government. We also had some requirements we needed to have open source. It's a nightmare, to be honest, to be in government and to develop open source, because then you are responsible for that. You need to maintain it, and yeah, sure, you get some money to develop it, but then software is not about you deliver once and you forget about it. Software today is an constantly iterative process, which you have to update, maintain, evolve, develop, and that is hard work. And I think it's not what governments are best at, to be honest. So I think coming back to interoperability and openBIM, that is what the government should be asking for, not open source, but open standards, because that gives you the vendor neutrality, that gives you the openness, that gives you the assurance that it's going to be archivable. IFC is an archivable format officially accepted in Estonia already since, I think, 2021 or 2020, something like that. And we have so many examples of IFC being used as a very good archiving format as well. So yeah, I think that's one of the key takeaways for this session. If we're talking about openBIM mandates and what is the value of openBIM, especially for governments, it is that you don't have to focus on open source. We have so many great vendors in the buildingSMART community, and they develop much better software than any government could, to be honest. So you have to understand that it is not the best job of governments to develop their own software, but they should be using open standards and openBIM workflows and adapt to those. So yeah, I think that's it from me, Calvin. Thanks for giving me the chance.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Would love to hear many of you, and so let's also continue. So we briefly spent some time about why, right? What are the expected values so that we have a target of where we are going. Now let's talk about the journey. Nobody can just run from day one. It would be dangerous if you try to run from day one. So whether it means piloting, whether it means really ready, as Taifat mentioned from Singapore, give them a 3 years countdown and make sure that we are ready for what is really called a mandates. But beyond mandates, you may not want to just be mandated to do something. Can we actually want to do it? Business as usual. So one analogy that I remember I first gave in Australia some 15 years ago is that at that time, I think I have one of the first BIM titles more than 20 years ago. And very often, we tend to put the best attention, the best energy, the best spotlight on the front runner. It's always talk about the initial projects, what we can do. And you heard some of those. We were able to achieve 800% return on investment. But that's only the front runner. For lots of this public policy, public procurement mandates, we need to not only work with the front runner, we need to make sure that we also work with your average team. We also need to work with your smaller, your little bit less advantaged enterprises. And sometimes we even need to be the ambulance. Sometimes we even need to make sure that we focus attention in supporting those who need to make that strive. So let's hear from us that where do you see your respective mandates fit in your journey? Are you piloting or is it really business as usual? And so let's learn from Will.
Thank you. So AASHTO adopted in 2019 a mandate that we would use IFC for exchange. Since then, we've been very active in pooled fund studies to try to drive decisions on the bridge as well as the infrastructure side. We joined the BSI community, and I'm here as part of that. And we're continuing to work on refining JSTAN. The Joint Subcommittee on Data Standardization is put in place in 2019 as well, or I'm sorry, I think 2020. And we're trying to organize all the different parts of AASHTO so that we can have unified standards that efficiently exchange information throughout the life cycle. So this is the makeup of JSTAN and the respective committees and their representations. We have active work going on across the United States through different DOTs. And through pooled funds, we have multiple efforts going on to build out these standards. Hamid?
Let me take you through the experiment or the journey of Dubai municipality. In Dubai municipality, sorry, the journey started 2013 as a soft mandate. In 2013, we tried to make the market ready. So we launched the soft mandate. So it was a signal to the construction industry to prepare for a future mandate. Then in 2017, a committee was established for building permit procedure development. Then in 2019, e-checking BIM pilot project was launched. And in 2020, the committee also launched Dubai BIM roadmap, the BIM roadmap and BIM standards. So the committee was like, or Dubai municipality was working with other regulatory authorities in Dubai to unify a building code for all regulatory bodies and government authorities. In Dubai, we had Dubai Municipality, Tarakhis, and Dubai Development Authority. Also, we have the Dubai Civil Defense. All of them work together to get a unified building code, which is we name it as Dubai Building Code. And in 2020 also we joined the buildingSMART committee, and the UAE chapter was established. And in 2021, the BIM e-checking self-checking service was launched. And in 2023, the announcement of BIM mandate was the announcement was for the beginning of the 2024 January to start to mandate specific types of buildings. And it was actively mandated in 2024. And from that, from 2024, we started to receive projects, and we worked with consultants to apply for building permits using the openBIM standards and the Dubai Building Code. And yes, let me so the activated BIM mandate started at the January. And since then, we received more than 80 projects. And yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Congratulations. I think to hear that journey, very gradual. I remember being able to visit Dubai municipality a year ago, and also chatting with you and your colleagues that so far actually things are going quite smoothly, right? And able to start work with all the high rises building, and because that's also what Dubai is about. So yeah.
I wanted to add one thing. In 2020, when we established when the committee developed a comprehensive roadmap and Dubai BIM standards, it was based on openBIM, the IFC, the BCF, the IDS, the BSDD, and the ISO 19650. On that date also, there was a set of tools to facilitate the BIM e-submission, automated code compliance checking, and the integration between GIS and BIM. So that's it.
And I think that's some commonality, is that it's really about BIM in terms of information management, infrastructure, buildings alike, but also the geospatial side. Well, let's go up north to Finland.
All right. So yes, as mentioned, we have a long history in developing BIM and adopting BIM and using BIM. So I started my career in 2008, and I was a designer for over 10 years. And all the design work I did was model based. So that was like very early on. And since 2012, we've had common BIM requirements, and first for buildings and then for infrastructure. And most of or all of the major procurers require BIM based on these common requirements. But the challenge is that the requirements are quite on a common level. So every procurer has their added on own requirements and guidelines and instructions that you need to follow. And for me, I used to be a designer. I'm really can remember how many hundreds of guidelines you had to read through to get to what you were supposed to deliver. And in the recent years, we had also a major change in our Construction Act. So we had a new Construction Act that actually came first in use in 2023, and that was actually that Construction Act was starting to require deliveries as models, but it's not a mandate. So we don't have a mandate in Finland, and our Construction Act has actually been changed since. So we're still in the process of writing things down, especially in a law decree that then will more closely describe what you're supposed to deliver. But right now we're in a situation where BIM is not mandated, or openBIM is not mandated, and I must clarify that to me a BIM or an openBIM or an IFC mandate means that the process of information modeling and management is mandated. So that is not happening. The law is concentrating on deliveries, which is described as a 3D model, but that's not mandatory. You can actually hand in your building permit application as a PDF like before, without much change to it. So the law is not actually mandating a change in the process, a change in the way of thinking, and that's the challenge. If we want to have digitalization, we need to go into actually requiring a process where information is automatically exchanged, or it's delivered according to standards. And also one major thing is also in Finland that at the moment we're using terminology that has contradictions. We're actually in the law we're using the same word in Finnish for a data model and an information model, and they are not the same thing.
Well, the journey as early as it has begun, and with good intention of like I remember vividly about the 2012 Common BIM requirements. At that time, I think we were contributed to some of the earlier version, 2008 Senati Open BIM guideline. But what was important is that sometimes do not just add, pile up more requirements. I think part of your Common BIM requirements is that by all giving away your own agency, organization, municipality specific requirements, so that we all have a common requirements in this case, right? That builds upon openBIM, and then you can then add on different specific additional layers to it. But what you also mentioned was also a lot about the challenges, a lot about challenges, and a lot about kind of like what is the appropriate level of mandates in the legal legislative wordings. Should it be about the product, the output? Should it be about the process, right? And then what role then would municipality, would agency, would asset owners also step in and do? So I think those are some good questions. Let's hear from the audience. And in case you're mic shy, I hope you are not, there are also Mentimeter questions for you to share that, so that I think our working group can take it back and focus on what you think are important topics to work with many of you in this room and talk. So let's hear from Veiko. So please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Veiko from Bexel. So I have heard a lot of very smart things from all of you and a lot of challenges. So, and we discussed a number of times about this thing. So I just wanted to give you a few feedback from, let's say, Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, so from our region. So let's say today, now from January this year, openBIM is mandatory in Slovenia. But I'll tell you the general feedback, which is not ideal at the moment. So first of all, as you said rightly, both of you, about requirements. So sometimes I personally saw maybe thousands and thousands of BIM projects, never saw LOD 400 and never saw fully COBie fulfilled requirements. Because honestly, my opinion is nobody wants this. Everybody wants the things you mentioned: safe project, energy efficient project, cost effective project, time effective project. I never had a question from any investor. I mean, I was, and our colleagues convinced the government in Slovenia to introduce BIM. Nobody in government asked us, are you going to fully implement LOD 400 or openBIM but everybody asks, is it going to be cost effective and time effective? And if I can quote Jan from his perspective, maybe I'm wrong, but he mentioned when we discussed about this automated system for approvals, that originally, maybe I'm going to say something which is not fully correct, that originally in the system there were 120 mandatory properties, and actually government needed 15, and 8 of them were not in these 120 required properties. And so you increase a huge, and this is not, the problem with this is not just with the it takes more time and money to develop such a huge BIM models, but also it takes time to make changes. So people are usually very late because they need to change things. So the strong suggestion and feedback, now we have a problem in Slovenia. The government and public companies who expected investors the benefits of this, see, now it takes even more time to us to do something. It's not more cost effective, so we are not sure if this is beneficial for us. So strong suggestion is to do something what we call fit for purpose requirements. So to really carefully think about what you are going to ask, but then deliver it well. And that's one thing I believe will help. And also what I like in this example is I noticed once from 100 million, 40 million, cost saving was 6. To be honest, it's a huge cost saving. And if just that is a benefit, we should focus on these examples. And that's the thing. If I may say, on the other side, on openBIM, so that's the in terms of implementation and realistic requirements. On the other side, if I may say, in terms of IFC, I will suggest when buildingSMART is doing evaluation of openBIM tools and certificates, also to introduce measurement of how fast not just the quality of export, but how fast export is. So I will say that sometimes we have a situation where the tools are using their own proprietary formats, exports and interoperability. Internal interoperability works very fast, and it takes a lot of time. So also just this will be another thing which will tremendously help in openBIM promotion.
Thank you so much to appreciate that perspective also from Slovenia and the region. Earlier this week, I was able to moderate a session here in Singapore to trying to also focus on some of those exact metrics. For example, I've learned that there are 1,200 parameters that needs to go in. For example, when you talk about export, they were joking, and it was great. We had asset owners in the room. We had 2 design engineering firms, architects, engineering firms in the room. We had a builder. And then we also had a solution provider in the room. So it was a great discussion. But then they were joking that, oh, every time I need to wait for a ConnectX compatible export, try to do it on Friday. If you may take off on the weekend, and then otherwise my boss would say that, why are you staring at the computer looking at hours of export? But what was even better in that discussion was that the solution provider was in the room, and they were saying that, can you pilot that? We are aware of that problem. We want to work with you. We are looking for pilot. And then indeed, I think as we learned yesterday that that initially right now we need to work slowly with the model intelligence and model checking automation. Otherwise, it's still for the approving body to, rather than measuring things on PDF or on paper, you need to actually measure things much more manually over the openBIM environment. So I think all these are right on, and I think all these are the feedback loop that BCA, for example, is trying to capture to improve and to adjust that. But on the other hand, what if Singapore may have used IDS, would have used BSDD, would have used even more of those? How would that change some of those? So I think that's certainly, I hope we can see more of those discussion. I saw another hand. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Ronald Burks from Gobar from the Netherlands. So I also have some experience with that our country, Netherlands, is not mandating BIM, and there are some reasons for that. So what I think what is needed is to think in different levels. So first of all, we need money from the government in order to make a program and to do these smart things, what we hear in this room. But in order to get the money, we need some metrics for them. So they on a more macroeconomic level. So what will be the effects on economics? What new jobs can be created? What will be the effect of the infrastructural building industry, who is now behind other sectors in the industry? How can it be more competitive? These kind of things are important for them in order to free the money. So if there are some reports or surveys how to do this, how to measure this, then I think it's also good to share with this community. And then I think we have a level below. Then we can learn from all of you how we can do this. And then also I think it's good to have these fit for purpose requirements so that we really can deliver things what are bring this impact on the industry, and also very fast. And then they can see that it helps, and it can hopefully make free more money for investments. And I think that is what needs to be changed. And then of course you on the lowest level you have to also the companies who need to be changed, the people who have to see the advantages. But that's yeah, I think we have to think at different levels. So.
All right. Well, thank you. Again, I think all these are very important kind of like pointers in terms of where we all want to invest together. Please, I see two hands along this way. So let's start with Jugal, and then I do see Jack.
I'm going to go up front so it's easier for people to see. Hello, hi. Jugal Makwala. I'm with Autodesk right now and in the Netherlands. So building on to what Ronald just said. And I was fortunate that I got opportunity to work in Singapore with TIFET and work on several initiatives here, implement projects and do BIM on it. And I would say that this change that we are going on, I want to talk about 2 points. One is that the transition from, let's say, the manual drawing to CAD was simpler because we didn't change much, right? In terms of what we were doing with pen and paper, we did that with digital tools. So there wasn't a lot of change. That was an easy transition. And at the government side as well, the procurement didn't have to change, right? It was still a drawing. It's just that the way we delivered that drawing changed. But the shift from CAD to BIM is a huge one, right? Because we are now talking about information model, we are talking about data, we are talking about how to structure that, we are talking about elements and extracting insights, which is a completely different ballgame. And one of the biggest issues that we have had in the last several years is we've been talking about creation. There has been too much emphasis on how well we create, right? So obviously standards and standardization play a big role, but there hasn't been as much emphasis on consumption. Right, so we don't use all of that, right? So we put in all these effort. We have 1,200 parameters, like IFC supports 2,000 different parameters, but which of those are being consumed, right? We talk about the LODs and we talk about doing it for coordination, and all of that requires time and effort, right? So I think one of the potential opportunities that we have to leapfrog is AI, which is not just a trend, but something that can help us in facilitating and fast tracking the consumption of information. And that is what we need to kind of focus on, that how can we use that information model to extract the insights. And the third point is that this change is going to impact everyone, not just the supply chain or stakeholders and consultants, but also the government organizations, because they have to change. Right, they have to change in terms of the information that they are. So there has to be a big shift in the way policies are written, whether you have a mandate or you don't have a mandate. And we put in a lot of effort on, let's say, capturing value, but at a government end, they should also be discussing on the risk of not doing it. right? What is the risk of not doing that, right? What is going to happen in 5 years' time? So there are a lot of interesting points, and we can go on and on about this, but I think this topic is very important when we really need to focus on the consumption aspect and the cultural aspect of change that is strategic to it. Technology is not an issue, right? 60% of the technology that we need to do these things has existed for last 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chagao. In my order of memory, I saw Jack and then Tamo. So, oh, great, more and more hands. I lose track. So, if you don't mind, I'm in no hurry, but I worry about your lunch. So, if we all don't mind, or if you worry about lunch, we can keep it brief, okay? But all these are great comments. So, start with Jack.
I will make it very quick. Jack Malala with WSP. I think Will mentioned where we are, in the journey with openBIM. We learned a lot from everybody that's been at the summit over the years. But one thing that really strikes me, I think I'm going back to your previous question, what about IFC? What do we see challenges? We are right now in the state of piloting openBIM processes. One of the biggest challenges is we're transacting in data now. And I hear CoordinateX, I hear other countries talk about regulatory information requirements, maybe a few dozen parameters that we are checking on. As we grow the complexity of the data exchanges, I think we need to have a very clear picture on where IFC works and where it doesn't work. I think it's really important. And we are finding those lessons, they're hard lessons that we're learning in the piloting that we're doing right now. It's important to get ahead of the message, because if something is not working, it's good for the industry to know that it's in the works and it's going to be supported, because otherwise people form their opinions. I think this is very important. That's one of the biggest challenges I see, is the transparency. And the second very quick point is, we talk about benefits all the time, but there is a cost. When we talk about benefits, we look at 10 years down the line, but there's a cost for investing. And owners should understand that standardization comes at a cost before you see benefits. And I have not seen, we have done many international scans, a good documentation of what the soft cost and hard costs are for implementation. I think it's very important in the journey to be transparent about that. So
Thank you, Jack. What are the lessons learned? How best to use things from IFC and data standards, and also the value, right? The investment and the benefit and the return over time. I think next is Jack and then Tamo.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Jack. Shall maybe let me go here so that I can meet everyone. Yeah, and I'm Jack Chan from Hong Kong, and I wear several hats, and one of them is Culture Industry Council. In fact, BIM is mandate in Hong Kong for all the public projects exceeding 30 million Hong Kong dollars since 2018, but not openBIM. And I think some challenges is that I feel one is because Hong Kong, many practitioners already have been used with some proprietary BIM software, and then it's actually difficult for them to change. And that's why we are saying that BIM and openBIM seems two parallel track, but we are happy, or we are impressed that when we go to some other places, when they talk about openBIM, they don't talk about openBIM, because basically BIM is openBIM. And that's why in Hong Kong, then we differentiate openBIM, because we started with some proprietary BIM, and this is actually difficult to change them. And another thing is about, it's not clear about what openBIM can do, what openBIM cannot do. There are many rumors about what are the limitations of BIM and of openBIM. And some people say that, there will be information loss. Some people say that the geometry may not be that good. Some people say that the software may not interpret well, etc. There are many rumors. Some are rumors, some are truth. But I think if we make it clear about what we can do, then at least, especially the government, will know what are the limitations, and then they will not have the fear that if they change the openBIM, then there will be some problem, especially about the statutory requirement. And the third is about the standardization. Because we mainly focus on the BIM management. We seldom have the standard about what is the information requirement, etc. And this is something that we want to do. And we also mentioned that there's the difference between the adoption and implementation. we try to promote, even for some CIC, we are trying to promote the openBIM, or under the leadership of Ada Fong and the BIM the chapter. Then we try to promote the use of openBIM. But no matter it's BIM or openBIM, we found that adoption and implementation will be different. We can encourage many people to do openBIM, but do they really use openBIM in the right way, so that people will not have the bad word about that? We are worried that some people use openBIM and find that they use maybe wrongly or not completely, and then say that openBIM doesn't work, and they don't use openBIM anymore. And this is actually something we are worried about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Certainly some good alignment with what we just heard from Jack. Yeah, please, Tamo.
Okay, Tarmo Savolainen from Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency. In 2010-2014, in Finnish infrastructure sector, we had Infra FinBIM program. And that time, Ville remembers that he was working in Helsinki City. I was not even working in FTI. And that time, there was a vision that in 5 years, the whole Finnish infrastructure is openBIM based. Now we are 2025. We are not yet there, but in our organization there is 45 project managers who are very strong independent persons. They don't always buy our development people's ideas. That's why they are strong project managers. And you said about importance of piloting and small techs and steps, and you said marathon. I think you have to continue. If I look now 5 years behind, lots of development has happened in people, in software, in standards, in many things. So we just have to go small steps every day and continue working. Do you think you agree?
Oh yeah. I was going to quote, I'd written a note, Lao Tzu, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And so as we look at our evolution in BIM, we just have to be committed to the journey and not fixate on any individual step. And if you get off the path, find your way back on, keep going.
Great. I saw more hands. I'll come to many of you, but let's also learn from our panelists. So the final part, again, I'll have 2 pausing points. One, it's about 12:30 so that you can go for lunch. Another point is that I'll stay behind. Anybody would love to stay, would love to continue discussion. Strategic next steps. Over the last 20 years, I've worked with some of you in this room or outside of this room, and a number of agencies. I think in the end, we have over 10 countries and agencies actually came together and signed an international MOU to say that all these public agencies would commit in. I think to some of your point, it's not about LD 400, it's not about BIM, it's about the sustainability, it's about smarter operation, it's about all the nice kind of the vision that we have. But then it's also about openBIM, it's also about open standard, not open source, right? So is that a good approach? Could BSI promote some of these so that we have more formal opportunity for the Singapore to learn from the Dubai and many other, and then vice versa, right? And so let's hear from each of you. What do we see as some strategic next steps? Heads up, Janice and Tony will also run a Figma board to interact with us, to also learn from all of you, all of us, what we want to do together for the next publication. So let's, this time, let's hear from Hamid.
Yes. Actually, we are looking to expand the BIM mandate and automated building regulations. So our mandate, when we started to mandate, it wasn't for all buildings. The mandate was for architecture buildings with 20 floors or higher, and the buildings that exceeds 20,000 square meters. So it's very large and huge projects. And as we mentioned earlier, it's an evolving process and it's a step by step. So starting with something is better than not starting at all. So at least we are trying to do something to reach somewhere, inshallah. We continue also to improve the standard and platform. As we go through, we see that we need to keep improving and we keep developing the standards that we have. Also, we need to invest more in training and upskilling the program. In my opinion, I think educational institutes, universities, education is the main thing, and it's the start of increasing the awareness, adopting the technology, implementing the technology. So if we started earlier in explaining what is openBIM in the universities and explaining everything that we need to know from education institutes, academia, any other, we will get, inshallah, into next step. Also, we are trying to unify 2D and BIM review systems. We are also trying to extend the scope of our BIM mandate construction phase to support the inspection services. And we are trying to investigate emerging trends in digital buildings like AI, VR, MR, and other technologies. Also, we are trying to work and mandate the building certification for consultants and contractors for the program. And thank you.
Thank you. Next, Anina.
Thank you. So, yes, it's been a long journey for the past 20 years, and it's still ongoing. And in Finland, we're really looking at now to bring the use of openBIM to a new level, to a standardized level where we have an open standards-based digital workflow. So that is where we need to get to. And one major thing, at least in Finland, is the language that we use. And like I mentioned before, we have some issues with the Finnish language and translations of BIM. And at the moment, we're pretty much in a situation where much of the industry still sees BIM as a 3D model file, and even the law says this. So the law doesn't talk about BIM according to standards, and we really need to clarify this situation in terms of that everybody in the industry would have the same understanding of BIM as a process and what digital workflow is. And probably we're going to need more law changes to clarify things. We're also in the works of right now writing a law decree on the Construction Act that will clarify what modeling means. So hopefully that will bring some solutions. And actually in this law decree, IFC 4.4.3 is mentioned, but it's not a mandate. And I think the way forward would also to be to talk that we need openBIM mandates, and the mandates would definitely need to be according to open standards and use the same language, and that's one very key thing. But on the other hand, we also need a change in the way we think. So we're still stuck in the paper-based or the documented way of thinking. So and often you're concentrating on, okay, how can we do this digital development but not change the process? So like just tweak some things when we actually need to change the whole process. And it's really like we need a change in the way how we think. What it's digital, how is digital thinking different from the analog world? And it's actually very different. So we really need to concentrate on the discussion on this and making it clear. And one thing is also that we need more standardization. We need a standardized way how BIM works as a process. We need standardized properties. We need classification, all this. And also one challenge is that in Finland we're really good at doing pilots and doing projects, but we're in a situation where projects and pilots are unique and the results don't carry on. So we need continuity, and that is standardization. And we also need to be able to publish machine readable requirements. We need to be able to require machine readable requirements and really change the whole workflow.
Just quickly, I think, okay. Oops. So we are running pilots right now. PennDOT as well as Iowa DOT both have active pilots going. There are a lot of other state DOTs that are running various pilots to try to figure out their particular needs to drive openBIM. And that's ongoing. The construction industry is behind us in going to BIM and moving in this direction. So one thing we've already talked about is, or we've talked a lot about kind of at a high level what we need to get to long term. And we've talked about it being a marathon or a journey. Something Jag said to me yesterday that sparked was, we've got to give people tangible intermediate steps to get through that journey, not just speak only to the final outcome, but give them goals that they can get to on intermediate levels. So that's something that we need to not have perfect be the enemy of good. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that we're moving in that direction. So those are some ideas to push.
All right, well said. So again, two parts. I'll cover a couple highlights before 12:30. Anybody don't mind a little bit later lunch with me? We can stay for more Q&A. So I think, Will, you want to say a little bit about this?
Sure. Once again, kind of a plug about people. It's about people. We aren't building buildings to take care of concrete and steel. It's really about making people's lives better. And for us in the transportation industry, we're very focused on getting people home and being safe. And every one of those individuals are somehow connected to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. They play games, they have parents, all of those different things. But I like to show this slide to remind us, even though most of the time we're talking about very, very technical things, it really all is driven by people. So as we work on openBIM, let's not forget.
Exactly. Well said. In the end, what is our ultimate value? It's to serve our citizens, to serve the community. So call for participation. This should not end at 12:30 in terms of initiative, in terms of collaboration. Our team is taking very good notes of some of the suggested next steps. How should we bring the second publication to the third publication level? Should we call that differently? Should we focus on some of the comparative analyses? Should we focus on what may be some of the key ideas? Is it about the investment as well as the expected or the actual return? What should we be doing? But also understand that we don't want to spread ourselves a little bit too thin. So final call, and John will let's tee up my teammates joining us from California, Janice and Tony. Janice, Tony, what are we going to do with this Figma board?
So we're, like what Calvin mentioned earlier, there are many types of requirements, mandates, policies, and what we'd really like to see is around the world, we've started this board, and we like to see around the world if what public procurement looks like in terms of mandates or requirements, and what does submission approvals look like. We've actually populated some examples from Finland, from Dubai, the US, and Singapore. If any of these notes are wrong, feel free to come in here and edit them and update them. In order for you to contribute, you would need to log in if you have a Figma account. Otherwise, you can create one for free. And we'd really like for you to get your fingers in here and, drag your flag in. If your flag is missing, then please copy and paste an external image and just paste it in here. Add rows, add columns. We want to know what you are all doing. And we hope that this can contribute to the third version of the publication.
Yeah, we will be sharing some of you. We will switch over. Actually, I don't think I have too many final notes. Yeah, I think finally we'll be showing some of the Menti or the Figma board results on screen, but we also may be publishing that with BSI after the event in case you have to run. But before the end, before the Q&A, the open mic Q&A, I certainly want to thank buildingSMART International. I want to thank Hamid, Anina, and Will, and many of the active participants here. We hope that this is a journey. It's not just about one mandate or a mandate. We really want to build upon all these good sound bites, all these good experiences, and really move the community together. I love what Will had to say about united, we all can stand, we all can run. So while you can see some of, so that's about 12:30. So if you have your next appointment, feel free. Thank you for joining us. For those who can still want to stay for a few minutes, Janice will be showing you some of the results. I think Janice and Tony, we are seeing your screen. You can show us the results from either the Figma or earlier we had the Menti. And then, sorry, where were we? Who had your hands up and may still want to share some of your thoughts? Yes, please, Ada, please introduce yourself.
Ada Fung from the Hong Kong China chapter. And well, actually, I wear a number of hats, but right now this one is the hat I'm using today. In our journey in Hong Kong start with BIM for, I think, almost half a century. Well, not a quarter of a century. But I think the pace of uptake is slow relative to my expectation. And I think for openBIM, since we've been driving that with our chapter for 5 years, we are still struggling to get more people to use that openBIM and open standards. But now I think with governments doing the regulatory work with a target of 2029, I hope we can get there soon. So we have to wait. But with government mandating as a procurer, mandating use of BIM since 2018, and already injecting a lot of funds for training and for the softwares, I think we have to move this with bigger momentum. Otherwise, it will dissipate. And for those who can still survive without BIM or openBIM, they can still survive, then why do it? And I think people's kind of mindset with complying with clients' requirements, complying with government requirements, but for those that you can sneak out and don't do things, they will stick out. And that's a kind of common human kind of fallacies. So, but listening to all these, I think there are two aspects that we haven't got in this room. One is, I think it's very important, is technology. Apart from government mandates, is it user-friendly, easy to use, no bugs, no problems? And I think we have some more work to do. This is the part that I think we need. Otherwise, as Anna said, after getting there, have the achievements, and then there's no continuity. So we need readiness or user-friendliness for the openBIM globally as an international standards that will be adopted across the board. So with smartphones, everyone knows to use it. You don't have to mandate the use of it. So unless we get there, I think we have to struggle for a few more decades. So I don't want that to perpetuate for too long. So let's hope for the next 5 to 10 years. How about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ada. I think what is unique from both Singapore and Hong Kong as economies, as kind of like approval bodies or public procurement is that I think kind of like you are also providing not only the stake or the mandate, but also the carrots, right? I think yesterday we had hundreds of millions of Singaporean dollar or euros or USD, and in Hong Kong it's about that level back to the community to uptake for the uptake and the skill set. So I forgot who still has time and would like, yeah, please, Sergio, please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Sergio Muñoz from buildingSMART Spain, and we have an openBIM mandate since 2024. I want to add something very quick. So it's true that in these times, technology is evolving very fast. New data formats are appearing every day. So I think that to have openBIM mandates is the best way to protect the IFC initiative and all the what is doing BSI. So I think that it's true that there are many challenges related to adopt openBIM standards. But I think that buildingSMART International and all the chapters have to work very hard to give support to public agencies, to public governments in order to help them in education, upskilling, best practices, all of that, because it's the best way to protect what we are achieving in the last 25 years. So just that.
Maybe just a show of hand. How many of you are from government agencies? Show of hand from government agencies. How many of you do work very closely with government agencies, advising them and being retired from agencies? Okay, I think those are important. And I saw another hand. Yes.
Yes, Franco Cohen. I'm chairing the regulatory room, and I'm here to help Calvin to close the session, because I just want to say here that today in the afternoon at 4 p.m. we have another session with of the regulatory room, and I invite all of you to come and for continue the discussions. Unfortunately, you cut it up half of my presentation. I don't need to do anything more. I just want to, so we have more time for discussion and more time for questions. So thank you, Cam.
Great. That's something good. I think it started yesterday, like Yoshi was on stage, many of you, and then today, and then this afternoon. I think that's the power of BSI. So anybody else has any advice, suggestions, please introduce yourself. Yes.
Thank you. I'm Lucy from CCCC from China. I would like to share a question rather than experience. So we are a contractor in China specialized in infrastructure area, and certainly we work with our clients and the government. And now the question is, I think we know how to produce BIM models or produce high quality FC file, but we don't know. But the client do not know how to use the FC or why they use FC or what's the next step for FC. So that's the obstacle for now. Even though we have some national standard that's mandating FC, but the why is still a problem we can't solve. And then it brings the question for our company. When we design the projects, since the client do not know how to use FC, so we miss the same question: why we develop FC, even though we know how to develop FC. So in short, is for us, we still see is investment for producing BIM models or other stuff, but we cannot see the return. That's my question to share. But we are also open to collaborate with our overseas international collaborators to solve that problem. Thank you.
So if I can jump in, I want to quote a really brilliant person, Jimmy Neutron. It's a cartoon character in the United States. He said, repetition is great for a growing mind, i.e. a 8 or 9 year old boy. But I've found over the course of my career, good ideas you have to say over and over and over and over. openBIM, open exchange of data is critical. It's where the technology needs to go, or it's where the culture needs to go, whatever country you're in. So I know that sometimes it seems futile for you to produce something that then gets set down, but keep pushing, keep training, keep teaching why, the value, and eventually it will take up. I've thrown out ideas that take a decade for somebody to grab hold of. So I think this is something where we just have to invest and continue to push. But good that you're asking.
So you said to bring back to my kids, yeah, to continue to do that. Again, really appreciate all of you for staying, and some of those we can continue over lunch in terms of responses. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Calvin. I'm Sunil from buildingSMART India chapter and also a digital practitioner. Glad to see, and I think next time we'll also share you some updates because the volumes at which we are handling things in India is pretty large. So from a mandate perspective, and I'm just coming from a very practical question because I just like the slide where you said when it becomes business as usual, when people and the industry and the stakeholder starts accepting it, that's where, you know, the real benefits of mandate, starts materializing. Now, in terms of accepting that in the asset information model where we have the data longevity and lots of benefits whenever we are talking about the ultimate data drops, where it is going for consumptions at regulatory or consumptions at the owner ends, I feel that there is no resistance because they are seeing such a huge benefit in terms of getting a non-proprietary or probably a format which will help them. The more resistance we get, specifically when we are talking about mandating it in the exchange environment, where essentially people are worried more about the efficiency of their workflow, and then they only think which is the most fastest and the better way to do this for the time being so that I can achieve my required digital goals. And that is where we have to probably share more learnings without getting into much details, but that's a challenge in terms of how do we bring more efficiency in the exchange phase. Okay, and ultimately from a user perspective right now, from a government perspective, they will do it. But from a content perspective, when it's going down to the user, we have to see what is the motivation for that user to really integrate IFC into his workflow. Because most of the time when the user, when specific AEC stakeholders, anybody who is a part of your stakeholders, if they are motivated to do it, then the mandate would probably be an instrument that would help, but then there is a lot of positiveness towards driving it. And I feel we'll participate in this, and we'll be very happy to kind of contribute, because world is becoming a small global village, and the more we share with each other, it will be really nice. Thank you so much for sharing this.
I love the diversity, yet how common and how kind of like converging all this are. Thank you so much, Sunil. Any final message, final advice? Let's keep the dialogue going. I think we heard that there'll be an afternoon session, and we all are connected with BSI. So final call, final words. All right, please join me in giving a round of applause to all of you joining us in person, the panelists. I cannot tell how many of you are joining us remotely. And thank you all. Let's continue to think about the value of everything we do and the impact that we are making. So thank you. Let's enjoy lunch.
Thank you, Calvin. That brings this session to an end.